Hello and welcome to Disney Movie Investigations. This is our case file on the 1984 comedy classic Ghostbusters. So for those of you that have never seen our videos before, what we do is each week we take a deep dive into a different Disney movie. But in this case, we are looking at our Halloween October bonus poll, which was chosen by you, the listeners, and you guys chose Ghostbusters. So each week we take a deep dive and look at its production history, how the movie got made, how it was received, and its future legacy within the world of entertainment. So like I said, this is our October bonus poll, which is Ghostbusters. And the movie was released on June 8th, 1984, and it was directed by Ivan Reitman, and it was written by Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis. The budget for this movie was between $25 and $30 million, and it had a box office gross of $296.4 million, so a huge success at the time. So in terms of, before we get into the deep dive, let's look at its production history and how the movie got made. So Dan Aykroyd has always been a fan of the supernatural as well as the life after death, and he thought of Ghostbusters as a vehicle for his then comedy partner at the time, John Belushi. They had just done Blues Brothers together, and they were looking for another project to work on. And the original script actually was quite different from what we saw on the screen. And the original Ghostbusters script had the Ghostbusters already established, and they would travel through time and space to battle different ghosts, as well as they would combat not only ghosts, but other supernatural threats as well. Unfortunately, John Belushi passed away before the movie was able to be developed fully, and the script was actually deemed not practical. So Aykroyd was then paired with another comedy writer named Harold Ramis, who had just come off writing the movie Animal House, and they were asked to redo the script and kind of make it more practical and more budget conscious. And Aykroyd originally wrote the script with himself, John Belushi, and Eddie Murphy in mind. One of the major changes was Eddie Murphy was no longer in the movie, and that role went to Bill Murray. And so the script was kind of retooled with his comedy styles more in the script. And then Aykroyd also wanted Ivan Reitman to direct. And Ivan Reitman thought the script was really good, but he thought the story should be like a more going into business story. And so Ivan Reitman, Dan Aykroyd, and Harold Ramis all actually went to Martha's Vineyard and kind of rented a cabin up there, and then reworked the script over a weekend and kind of like punched it up and made it really pop before they presented it to Columbia Pictures. And Ivan Reitman had a lot of momentum at the time because he had actually just finished Animal House and Stripes, so he was on a bit of a roll. And then Aykroyd and Reitman also kind of made it more contemporary as well, because it was kind of the original script was set in the future. So Columbia Pictures did agree to make the film after hearing the pitch from Ivan Reitman, but this was in March of 1983, and Columbia's contingency was, you guys can make the movie, but the movie has to be out by June 8th, 1984, in time for the summer blockbuster season. So that was just under 13 months. So that's actually quite quick for a movie to be developed and shot and ready to go in just under 13 months. So there was a lot of pressure on them. The other little snag is that they found out that the title Ghostbusters was actually licensed to another studio called Filmation, and that they were not as willing to give up the rights right away. So while they were filming the movie, they actually did several scenes where they filmed not anywhere that there said Ghostbusters writing, or like anybody said Ghostbusters. They actually filmed it twice, once saying Ghostbusters and then the other time saying Ghost Breakers, just in case they couldn't get the rights. But thankfully, considering Ghostbusters is a way better title, Filmation agreed to part ways with the movie title, in exchange for $500,000 plus 1% of the film's profits. So now that we know kind of how the movie got started, let's look at the casting. So to start off, Bill Murray was cast as Peter Venkman, and the bit of a trivia note is they had offered the role to Bill Murray, but they didn't have a signed contract for him, so they were kind of going on his word, saying that he was going to do the movie, but they actually didn't know for sure until he showed up the first day of shooting that he was doing the movie. And that's apparently just who Bill Murray is. From several interviews I've seen, is just like he just doesn't commit. So Harold Ramis, not only did he write, but he also starred in the movie, and he played Egon Spengler. And then Dan Aykroyd as well cast himself, or was cast in the movie as well as writing, and he was Ray Stantz. And then Ernie Hudson was cast as the fourth Ghostbuster, Winston Zeddemore. And then we had Sigourney Weaver cast as the female lead, Dana Barrett. And Julia Roberts had actually auditioned for this role, and they were the reason they didn't offer it to her is she was not as big a name as Sigourney Weaver was at the time. Sigourney Weaver was just coming off the Alien movies, and she was red hot at that time. Rick Moranis plays Louis Tully, and this role was originally conceived with John Candy in mind, and he was offered the part, but John Candy declined, saying he just didn't understand the role and didn't see himself fitting well within this cast. Annie Potts plays the Ghostbusters secretary, Janine Melnitz, and Sandra Bernhardt was offered this role, but she also declined as well. Our two villains are played by William Atherton, who plays the Environmental Protection Agency officer Walter Peck, and Salvezia Jovan plays the evil spiritual Gozer. And this was originally conceived as Paul Rubens, who you guys may know as Pee Wee Herman, but unfortunately it was declined by Paul Rubens. So yeah. So the majority of the filming took place in New York and on sound stages in Los Angeles. And then the score was done by Elmer Bernstein. And the iconic song, Ghostbusters, the main theme song, was done by Ray Parker Jr. And this was actually a huge hit for him. It became #1 on the Billboard, I think, for like 3 weeks in a row. So definitely one of his biggest hits. So now let's look at the plot. So Peter Venkman, Egon Spengler, and Ray Stantz have been kicked out of their university alma mater, and they decide to go into business for themselves by trapping and removing ghosts. So they are ghost exterminators. So right off the bat, business is booming, and eventually what this leads to a downtown skyscraper becoming a focal point of spiritual energy. And the skyscraper is where the domain of Gozer is, who is a mythical god. And the team now must band together because they may be in over their heads, having to eliminate this supernatural force. So the movie was a critical success. It received 2 Academy Award nominations, the first one being for Best Song for Ray Parker Jr.'s Ghostbusters. And it unfortunately lost to I Just Called to Say I Love You by Stevie Wonder. And then the other Academy Award was for Best Visual Effects, and unfortunately this lost to Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. So there was several spin-offs for this movie. The first thing is the TV series. So there was the Real Ghostbusters animated television show, which aired from 1986 to 1991. I'm going to do a separate video for the Real Ghostbusters because it has a huge legacy on its own. So yeah, I'm not going to go too much in depth to that one. Then there was also the Extreme Ghostbusters, which was an animated television show released in 1997. There was Ghostbusters Echo Force, which was announced in 2018, but unfortunately this got pulled because there was development on a Ghostbusters animated reboot movie, and so they didn't want the two competing with each other. This movie franchise also has a long legacy within the theme park industry as well. The first one, Six Flags actually developed a dark ride called the Hauntington Hotel, And this would have been a combination Buzz Lightyear / Haunted Mansion type attraction. And so what it was is guests would ride into Echo Ones, and they would use the proton pack ray guns to shoot different ghosts that were floating throughout the attraction. So kind of like Men in Black, what Men in Black would become. Unfortunately, it was developed but never completed. Then you had the Ghostbusters Spooktacular show, and this was in Universal Studios Florida. And this ran from opening day until 1996. And what it was a special effects show where guests would be recruited to be new trainees as a Ghostbuster. And then eventually it would lead to the recreation of the Gozer fight. And you would have a front row seat in watching the Ghostbusters take on Gozer, as well as the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man makes a cameo appearance as well. So after the show closed in 1996, they debuted the Extreme Ghostbusters, The Great Fright Way, which was a lip-synced concert where the Extreme Ghostbusters would sing along different songs within the Ghostbusters. So like obviously the Ghostbusters song. And this one actually featured a cameo from another spook, which was Beetlejuice would make a cameo in this role as well. And then in Dubai, there is a Ghostbusters attraction at their Motion Gate theme park, which is Ghostbusters Battle for New York. And this is like a Toy Story Mania type ride. And what this was is guests would get into their own Ecto Ones, and they would float. They would go from screen to screen, trying to trap as many ghosts as they can throughout the ride. And then the final screen was actually you against Gozer. So now the other aspect of this franchise is it spawned several video games. The first one being the Ghostbusters video game, which was released on the NES and Atari, and that came out in 1984. It's not a great game. I've played it. So frustrating, but not a great game. Then there was the Real Ghostbusters, which was released in 1989, and that was on the Commodore 64. The other major highlight was the Ghostbusters, the video game, which was released in 2009 on the PlayStation. And this actually won several awards, and it featured the original cast coming back, and it recreated the original movie, plus expanded on it as well. It definitely was one of the games, and it spawned several different platforms, but it was definitely a critical success hit as well. There was a slot machine developed for Las Vegas in 2012. And then a pinball machine as well was developed in 2016. The movie also spawned comic books, and in the late 80s, Now Comics and Marvel UK released their own Real Ghostbusters comic book line. Legion produced the Ghostbusters Legion in 2003. And then Tokyo Pop produced Ghostbusters Ghost Busted. The movie also had novelizations as well, but it also spawned spin-off novels. Ghostbusters The Return, which was a 2004 novel, which picked up right where the first movie left off. And then in 2016, to help promote the rebooted Ghostbusters movie, they created a Tobin Spirit Guide, which was a kind of an encyclopedia of the different ghosts. There is also a charity group out there called the Real Ghostbusters. Me being from Calgary, I've seen them at different charity events, different Comic-Cons. They're called the Calgary Ghostbusters. And what they do is I can only speak for Calgary. I don't know about the rest of them, but I know that Calgary, they often raise money at charity events for Alberta Children's Hospital, and they sell merchandise. And then at the Calgary Comic-Con, they do interactive experiences as well, where you can put on a proton pack and fight Gozer through an interactive experience, or you can fight the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. So definitely a really good group that they're out there at all the different major events. They're on Facebook as well. If you look up the Calgary Ghostbusters, you can kind of check out what they do. Unfortunately, there's a couple of lawsuits that when anything is successful, everybody wants a piece of it, right? So Huey Lewis actually sued Ray Parker Jr., saying that he stole the melody from him for the Ghostbusters song. That was settled at a court. And then the other one is Hanna-Barbera, who created Casper, the Friendly Ghost, actually sued the Columbia Pictures and the Ghostbusters, saying that they stole the logo of the ghost in the Ghostbusters logo from their character called Fatso. This one actually went to court, and it was ruled that Columbia Pictures and Ghostbusters had done nothing wrong and that they were not infringing on their trademark. So as well as this movie also spanned several sequels and reboots. There was Ghostbusters 2, which was released in 1989. And that one, I'm not going to go fully into it because I think it deserves its own video. Ghostbusters in 2016, which was a reboot, which featured an all-female Ghostbusters team. And then next summer will be, in 2021, we will see Ghostbusters Afterlife, which I'm excited for, with me being from Calgary, because I know it was filmed around the Calgary area, which was really exciting at the time. And then lastly, there's tons of toys, t-shirts, merchandise. Like I remember as a kid, I had a proton pack and a trap, and I had several of the action figures. There was the firehouse, there's t-shirts, there's plush stuff, there's plush Slimers, plush Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, a huge gamut, as well as Halloween costumes. I see them all the time. So this one has definitely a lot of steam behind it in terms of merchandising machine as well. So I kind of went over everything really quickly, just because I didn't want this video to be too long. If you want to know more about Ghostbusters and kind of how it got made, there's a great documentary on Netflix called, one of the episodes is the documentary series is called The Movies That Made Us. And they have a great documentary on Ghostbusters as part of that series. It really goes into depth about special effects, how the movie got made, really goes in depth. I didn't want to repeat everything that was in that documentary, just because then this video would be like 2 hours long. But yeah, definitely one I would definitely recommend if you're interested. So in terms of final thoughts, like this is a classic movie. Like I don't think anyone's not seen it. Like, and if they've definitely heard about it. It has steam, and this is like 35 years later that it's still going. And definitely, like from what I understand, like the Ghostbusters Afterlife, there's going to be another one after that. So definitely excited to see where this goes. And I think this movie as well holds up the test of time as well. The effects being practical effects, and they still hold up, I think is incredible. Like if you remember the scene where they're doing the library cards fly out of the stacks there, that was actually done with like copper tubing, with guys just blowing air through like copper tubing, and yet it still holds up to this day. And I think I've watched this movie 100 times, and I still get a kick out of it. I still enjoy it. It's still entertaining. So definitely one, if you haven't seen it, I recommend it. And even if you have seen it, it's one definitely to go revisit. So, and then for this week's artifact, I thought I would show you. This is a Ghostbusters glass, and I got this at a fan expo event in Vancouver. And yeah, it just has all my favorite characters like Egon, Venkman's there, Louis Tully, the Gozer, and Zool. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Our next video is going to be our case file on an extremely goofy movie. And this one, we're going to do another bonus story where we look at the history of ESPN's Wild World of Sports complex in Orlando, Florida. All right, I hope you guys have a great day, and I will catch you later. Bye.